I don't know if you can hear me, but I haven't been able to hear anything that's been said, so I'm not sure if this is public comment. The SBCF is muted and the public can't hear anything. I can see people talking but can't hear anything.
Linda, can you hear us?
I can now. Yes, this is my friend from Crab Feed Night. Thank you so much. Never got to thank you after that night.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we're sorry about that.
No, no, that's okay. I can lower my hand. I just wasn't sure if you were on public comment or not.
No, thank you actually for letting us know that. Did you want to speak on public comment for the general, but not an item on the agenda, or did you want to speak on a specific item?
Correct, for the general, please.
Oh, okay, so we'll go back. Okay. Hold on, just a moment. You want to give her a recap of what we've covered so far?
Sure, so, we've already done roll, and then we already went through public comment, but we'll come back to it. We approved the minutes. We had an executive director's report that was brief on our insurance, renewal and approving Nova Braddock to be our auditors, and that's as far as, oh, and we also, nope, we haven't gone there yet. So if you want to do public comment, Linda, please do so now. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I just wanted to jump on today. I would be there, but my son actually has a game, so I'm at Lions Field right now, kind of multitasking. But as the, Community Foundation really makes these significant decisions, you've been making them, the winding down of the Community Foundation has been officially stated by Ms. Natane to the City Council, so it is at this point public. I would just request that the funds that are remaining, that the decision around how those funds be spent be allowed to be a public discussion the way that the first rack was built. It was through a very, very, I think, wonderful public process where we were all invited in. I was at the meeting. I remember Jim Marine was there. And we were really all just told if there was something you could have in San Bruno, you could do in San Bruno, what would it be? And that's how the rack was built. And it's beautiful and it's a legacy project. And I think everyone's worked hard to make it work. With the second set of listening surveys, I've been pretty vocal about my discontent with the fact that the number one community request was not even placed on the board's top 10 items. But let's say that even taking that aside, the city has since also had a number of surveys. I believe there's 3 over the last 5 years So if the foundation does not want to engage the public in a listening session, then I would request that you look at the second survey that the foundation did along with the surveys that the city has done and take a look at what the public is requesting within like their top 3 or top 5, whatever it might be. I would also ask that as you're looking at those, I know that in one of the previous meetings that I was listening to, there is a request around the fire station. But since that request was made by the board members to get more information on, I just want to remind everyone that Measure Q passed, and under Measure Q, it includes upgrades to the fire station. And so hopefully that would relieve and alleviate the board into thinking about some other ways to fund maybe a new library, which was number 2 in the first set of listening sessions, funding the streetscape plan, which we're on the second one in the last 20 years, assisting our schools, et cetera. There's so many needs in San Bruno, and we're just trying to find ways to use the funding that we have left to use and address those needs. And then lastly, I would request that as you look at winding down, what does it look like to have a truly volunteer run foundation? The foundation has made an intentional decision not to require fundraising since its inception, intentional fundraising, not just asking, YouTube for money here and there. And with that decision, we're going to end up with, almost nothing. So we're going to have something to show for it through these legacy projects. But I would request that there be a discussion about what would it look like to have a volunteer run board in the same way the Education Foundation does, and who would that volunteer board be made up of? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Although this was public comment on items not on the agenda, I think this did relate to our study session item, and so we will consider that a comment on the study session.
Thank you. Okay, great. Should we just ask the public if there's any other comments since they couldn't hear us earlier?
Sure.
If you can hear, are there any other individuals on the Zoom that may have wanted to speak on a public comment of an item that's not on the agenda, since earlier it was muted? Anybody?
There isn't any.
Okay, thank you so much. So we're gonna move on to item number 6, which is consent calendar. We have 2 items: adopt resolution adjusting executive director's compensation and review the approved treasurer's report of February 2025 financial statements. With regard to 6B, adopt resolution adjusting executive director's compensation, state law requires all public agencies to orally announce the terms of recommended executive compensation adjustments before voting on them. In recognition of her outstanding service to the foundation, Executive Director Leslie Jaramillo will receive a 1-year increase in the foundation's pre-tax employer contribution to her 403B retirement plan from 5% to 10% of her salary for the period beginning February 1st, 2025 and ending January 31st, 2026. Her salary will remain the same and there will be no other changes to her compensation at this time. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment on this particular item?
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, great. Unless there's any questions or comments from the board, I'll call for a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Secretary Gomez.
Thank you. Board Member Belinda Wong.
Aye.
Board Member Supriya Perry is excused. Board Member Jessica Inglima.
Aye.
Treasurer Pac Lynn.
Aye.
Secretary Raul Gomez is an aye. Vice President Jim Ruane. Aye. And President Melissa Natania Jones.
Aye.
All ayes.
Thank you so much. Moving on to item number 7, I'm going to just preface this part by I'm going to be doing a lot of talking, and so please bear with me, but I think the context is very important. So this study session is to receive report from Ad Hoc Committee on Strategic Planning and discuss recommendation to focus on pursuing a legacy project, particularly a new fire station for number 52 with the city of San Bruno and winding down all other programs. In February, the board continued its post-RAC strategic planning deliberations to determine the foundation's program and investment strategies once the RAC grants are fully dispersed. The board confirmed that it wants to focus its discussions on two main options. One, spending down the remaining funds in the near to midterm on one or two large legacy projects and winding down all programs. And number two, spending down the remaining funds over a set period of time, for example, 10 to 25 years with a target annual budget, with several board members expressing a preference for option number one if an appropriate final legacy project can be identified as the best use of the foundation's remaining funds for the long-term benefit of the community. A reimagined library and a new fire station number 52 were mentioned as capital projects that the foundation might want to consider funding. The board also created a new ad hoc committee on strategic planning made up by myself, Vice President Ruane, and Secretary Gomez to lead the board's strategic planning deliberations. At its March meeting, the board held another strategic planning study session during which I gave an extensive overview of the committee's deliberations, including its recommendation that the board send a letter to the San Bruno City Council expressing the foundation's interest in exploring with the city's remaining potential options for a legacy project using the bulk of the foundation's remaining funds. The board approved a resolution directing the president and executive director to send the letter, and the executive director emailed the letter to all 5 city council members and the city manager on March 6th. At its March 11th regular meeting, the city council mentioned the foundation's interest in a legacy project during its discussion of Measure Q funding. Measure Q is the 102 million general obligation bond measure that San Bruno voters approved in November of 2024, with bond proceeds to be used for street and road repairs, stormwater infrastructure improvements, and fire station upgrades. Several of the council members expressed an openness to partnering with the foundation on another legacy project, such as a new fire station number 52. At its March 25th regular meeting, the city council created an ad hoc subcommittee to engage in discussions with the foundation about a legacy project. The council appointed Mayor Rico Medina and council member Michael Salazar to serve on the subcommittee. In anticipation of the city council creating the subcommittee, the board's ad hoc committee met on March 20th and discussed the board strategy for engaging with the city council options for the foundation's fiscal year 25-26 budget and the plans for the board's next strategic planning deliberations. All committee members are in agreement on the following. Of the options of the board is considering, the foundation should pursue the legacy option and wind down all projects. The top choice for a legacy project is the new fire station number 52. The city is considering using 24 million of the proceeds from Measure Q to fund the construction of a new fire station, and is also exploring the potential of relocating station number 52 to an alternative site, which could increase the project cost. While the committee believes the foundation should be open to considering other possible legacy projects with the city, such as a reimagined library, it is concerned with such projects would take years to develop and require significant additional funding sources that have not yet been identified or secured. If the foundation were to invest 15 million to 20 million in a new fire station, a project the city is already contemplating, the city could substantially reduce the amount of Measure Q funds needed to complete the project and would be able to redirect funds from the fire station replacement project to street and stormwater improvements. Given the origins of the foundation's funding, and committee also believes a new fire station 52, which would directly serve the Crestmore neighborhood and benefit all of San Bruno, would be an especially fitting final legacy project. The foundation should begin the process of winding down all programs, including the Crestmore Scholarship and the Community Grants Fund, this fiscal year in order to maximize preservation of the foundation's net assets for any legacy projects. Discontinuation of these programs starting in fiscal 25-26 would not only preserve the funds that would be awarded in grants and scholarships, but also result in reduction of the foundation's operational expenses. If the foundation continues on its current course and offers community grants, Crestmore scholarships, and some strategic grants in the next year, it will deplete the quasi-endowment at a much faster rate than it's previously, and the foundation's total net assets would likely decline, leaving less funds available for a legacy project at a later date. The foundation would finish the scholarship cycle that is currently in progress as scheduled, and neither the Crestmore scholarship nor community grants would be offered in fiscal 25-26. The foundation would focus its strategic grant-making activities on the development and implementation of any legacy projects, such as the Fire Station 52. The foundation would likely want to structure its financial support for future legacy projects similar to the way it structured its investment in the RAC, with multiple grants funding various stages of the design and construction process. The one other strategic grant-making opportunity that the board would be willing to consider is the funding of a permanent lighting as part of the Crestmore Fields project. When it approved the Crestmore Fields project grant, the board said it would be willing to consider funding permanent lighting at the field, which the city has roughly estimated to cost about $2 million after receiving more detailed information about the cost and benefits, and after the board has continued these strategic planning strategies or deliberations, excuse me. In addition to pursuing any legacy project options, the foundation would focus on the administration of previously awarded grants and scholarships, many of which are multi-year, and involve additional payments of grants and scholarship funds and reporting obligations of grantees and scholarship recipients. The foundation would look to trim operating expenses as appropriate to reflect the change in program strategy. The board would direct the investment committee to begin developing recommendations to update the foundation's investment policy statement and its investment operating plan and Sandhill Global Advisors to reflect the change in program strategy. We'd now like to have a robust discussion on the recommendations from the ad hoc committee. This will be a discussion only. The board will not be taking formal action on any of the recommendations at this meeting. The committee will take back the feedback from the full board and engage with the city council subcommittee and hopefully come back to the board in May to seek formal board approval on at least 3 key points. A, the desire to pursue a legacy project with a new Fire Station 52 as a top choice with the bulk of the foundation's remaining assets. B, to wind down other programs at the end of the fiscal year, meaning that the Community Grants Fund and the Crestmore Scholarship would not be offered in fiscal 25-26. And C, to direct the investment committee to begin developing recommendations to the foundation's investment policy, statement and investment operating plan to reflect the change in program strategy. The timing of such a board decision in May is important. If the board wants to begin the process of winding down other programs and prepare to invest the bulk of its remaining net assets on 1 or 2 final legacy projects, the board must make critical program strategy decisions no later than the May board meeting, so that those decisions can be incorporated into the fiscal year 25-26 budget. Before we open to the board discussion, we'd like to hear from the public. Are there any questions or comments from the public for this item?
Good evening, President Natani Jones and members of the board. I am Nancy Krause. I was appointed by the City Council as the first president of the San Bruno Community Foundation and served in that capacity for 5 of my 8 years on the board. We began as a foundation without a foundation. We had no mission statement, no norms, no protocols, no committees, no executive director, no investment advisor. I recall how we labored numerous Saturdays with a facilitator, developing piece by piece some of the groundwork for the foundation. Most importantly, creating a mission statement. We deliberated on just about every word in that statement, in particular, and I quote, that San Bruno Community Foundation serves the San Bruno community by investing in projects, programs, services, and facilities that have significant and lasting benefits. Under considerable scrutiny from the public, by the completion of the board's first 8 years, we had dutifully demonstrated our commitment to that mission. No better example than the new Recreation Aquatic Center, funded in large part by the foundation, which stands in the footprint of a facility that once served as a first aid disaster shelter for victims of the gas pipeline explosion. The board then and now has wisely invested the original 70 million restitution settlement funds to support the foundation's mission. But there was never an expectation that the foundation would live on in perpetuity. At this juncture, I believe strongly that it is prudent, and I applaud the board for considering taking the opportunity now, with the remaining fruits of that investment, to bookend the foundation's legacy with another new facility. I had occasion once to be inside Fire Station 52. The lack of space and amenities for that team of first responders is, quite frankly, antiquated to say the least, and well beyond what, quote, upgrades could provide. I wish to offer the board my full support for consideration of the following. Use the remaining foundation funds in partnership with the city to build a new Fire Station 52. Fund installation of night lighting at the Crestmore Fields. And importantly, I encourage the board to act on these decisions quickly to ensure that funding capability is at a maximum. I want to thank you, the current board, for your service, and thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts with you this evening.
Are there any other comments from the public?
Hello. Hello. Good evening, members of the Foundation Board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Jessica Carrillo. I'm speaking as a dedicated San Bruno community member, parent, active PTA member, and I'm dedicated to the betterment for all. I felt the need to come and speak today as I've seen firsthand how amazing San Bruno Community Foundation is and how much support the foundation has provided to our community and beyond. And it's been amazing, and I've seen it firsthand, and you should be very proud of all the work that has come from it. So turning a tragedy into something really amazing. Being a part of this positive change has been one of the most meaningful experiences of my life. I care deeply about San Bruno, and I want to see this foundation continue to uplift and strengthen our community for years to come. But I know I will continue to myself on my own means. I want to acknowledge the remarkable work of Executive Director Leslie Hatamia, the board and the foundation has accomplished as well. I understand the idea of directing most of the remaining funds into a legacy project that's driven by the desire to create something lasting, a project that stands as a testament to the foundation's long-term vision and commitment to the community. But so does adaptability and ongoing support in the uncertain times that we're facing now. So I think that's what's, I just wanted to bring to your attention, that with the unforeseen future that I feel with the government and everything that's changing day by day and all the drastic cuts, that I also want you to keep that into perspective in making your decision for the final funds, that our community might really need it in days to come. Our schools might need it, the whole community in all. Yes, the fire station is necessary, but how can we sorry, I see the time and I'm like running out here. Okay, how can we fulfill two different things at the same time? How can we balance both priorities, funding a fire station while also preserving programs that strengthen the community? What are options with Measure Q? Have we explored every possible option? And then I guess with my time running out, if I could just quickly say one last thing, I obviously wrote too much. Oh, if the legacy project is fully funded, with the remaining funds. However, I would hope that we could figure out ways to fill in the gaps to continue other, funding to be dedicated to different things that the community will need in the future. If legacy project is fully funded by the foundation's remaining funds, I encourage the board to also explore the idea of dedicating some funding for other emerging community needs that may arise. The San Bruno Education Foundation, as the only other foundation here, could be an excellent partner to help continue the scholarship legacy and ensure that our future generations are supported. That maybe you could allocate some funding if you want to potentially continue helping the school districts and helping students in San Bruno as part of an additional legacy project that could be ongoing. The amount for the scholarship fund this year is $165,000, as you know. And if we even reduce that amount, but allocated something towards the students, it could be something that you could potentially fit into, that you could potentially combine together. Thank you very much. I love the city, and I'm going to continue to be dedicated to it and want the betterment of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any other comments online?
Linda has her hand raised. Hold on. Linda, I think you can speak now.
Yeah, hi, good evening, board. I'm sitting out here, I mentioned earlier, watching the kids play on Lions Field. And on one field, you have probably about 50 people in the cold because they love their kids and they love the community. And they're out here having a wonderful time while the other field is flooded. And I come to this field quite often thinking of the potential that San Bruno has to build an amazing sports complex here, the way so many other cities have been able to do with multiple fields that work and that function. I remember when I was on the council, then director of the Recreation and Aquatic Center, Joanne McGreeny, coming in and giving a report on our library and how over 60,000 people entered the San Bruno Library in a single year. I remember all the Monday nights going with my kids growing up with standing room only because a quarter of the library community room is currently used for storage because there's just not enough room and it's aged out. I remember all the meetings with the consultants around bond measures and hearing how adding a fire station to a bond measure will make the public approve the bond measure. I'm looking at Measure Q right now, and it says here, upgrade fire stations to ensure rapid emergency response times, accommodate modern firefighting and life-saving emergency medical equipment, and ensure operations during earthquakes and natural disasters. And look at that, Measure Q passed. It feels a little bit like a bait and switch right now. The fire station and the firefighters deserve to have upgrades. They deserve to have the needs and the resources to assist our community because let's be realistic, firefighters today are also medics. And I love our fire station, but I love our entire community. And I do not understand how you all and the council have taken it upon yourselves to completely take the public out of the conversation on how the remaining funds of that affected the entire community. You've taken the whole community out of the conversation of what it needs. And I just don't understand how anyone thinks that that's okay. Measure Q is a godsend to the city. Measure Q is going to take care of the upgrades that the fire station needs. The city has $17.1 million remaining from the YouTube funds. And I really highly encourage all of you to have a listening session or come out and see where people are using our under-resourced facilities. I can tell you, I go city to city with the kids now, and I see what other cities put into their communities. And we have the money, and I just ask you that you really take a look at this before you decide to spend money that belongs to the community, not to you all. Thank you.
Are there any other comments from the public regarding this item?
I don't see any other hands raised.
Okay, great. So before I turn it over to the board, I just want to thank all of our residents and community members who said have come to speak to the board during our public comment and for these comments on this particular item. I'm now going to turn it over to the board for open discussion for this particular item. And so I'll start with Belinda. We'll start and we'll come this way. So if there's any comments, discussion items you want to bring to the board, let's talk.
What strikes me is we have a limited resource. What's left is what's left. It's not going to be able to accommodate every request out there. So I just feel we're doing our due diligence and understanding what's feasible, what's not feasible. And I think we just continue down that path.
Okay. Thank you. Jessica, do you have any comments you'd like to share?
Sure. Yes, I do. Kind of continuing Belinda's thought. I do think it's important to put it all on the table right now and understand, here are the list of projects that the foundation could potentially invest in, how much they cost, number one, the pros and cons of doing each of those, and sharing that publicly and making that a really robust discussion. I think you probably have done a lot of this because I'm joining this meeting, and the subcommittee has been hard at work identifying those things. But yeah, I think really understanding what all the options are so we can make an informed decision going forward. The other one I want to make sure we think about is the YouTube contribution. I know they've been investing in kind of partnering with us on various projects over the years. My experience was on the grants review panel and where they kicked in 100,000 every year, and just making sure that that we involve them in these discussions early and see if corporate sponsorship could help stretch our funds a bit farther, especially if we do wind down the other programs that they've been contributing to.
I have a lot going through my head right now. First part is, I guess, more information would be great. And I trust the subcommittee and the council and because you guys are plugged in and know what is needed and have done the due diligence to understand what's going on. I do remember when I was working for San Bruno, the fire station 52 was already dilapidated and was having issues. And I don't know if anything had done in the last decade to the fire station to improve it and meet some of the even general compliance. And so I'll be interested too. That's the information that I'd be interested in understanding. And I do understand the sentiment of, it would be great to have a nice new library. It would be great to have all these things. As Belinda has said, there's a lot of interest in these funds. And so it would be a question of, we can only invest in and partner with projects that are about to occur and not projects that are not ready yet. And so that would be the question for me, is there even any other thing that the city or anyone else is really able to ready to start construction or start the design work? versus us trying to figure out and push our agenda on any projects per se.
Thank you. Ro?
I just would like to say, as a lifetime resident of San Bruno, been on the board for a little bit over 5 years, and being an active participant in both listening campaigns 1 and 2, I am extremely proud of all of the work that this board has done. I believe that we've hit just about every mark that the community has expressed in listening campaign 1 and 2. And I know that we've given a lot to downtown, which is again, a project that again is never ending, but I think that the Community Foundation has really stepped up and has provided, has listened and has supported, again, any of the needs that have been presented to us that we felt were appropriate. So again, I'm extremely proud of all of the work that we have done with the scholarships, with the grants, programs, and any of the other work that we have done. And really, when I look at the whole entire board and its mission, holistically, I think that a legacy project is the exact right thing for us to do. Now, looking back at the listening campaign, true that a community center or a library was top or high on the list. And I believe that that's something that we have done our due diligence in looking at and making sure that we are in alignment with where we are with the Community Foundation and how we need to really look at what our immediate needs are and what we could move forward with. So with that, I wholeheartedly believe that Fire Station 52 is the exact right legacy project for the Community Foundation, in that they were the first responders to the horrible incident that happened in 2010. I believe they are closest in proximity to the Crestmore neighborhood. And I believe that, again, with the current condition of that fire station, it would be remiss of the Community Foundation to not, again, consider working with the city to ensure that we can uplift that fire station. So should another emergency happen, hopefully not, that we would be prepared to at least keep the community safe in that endeavor. So those are my 2 cents. Again, I believe we've done our due diligence, and I just think, again, moving forward with the legacy project is the exact right thing for us to do. Thank you.
Vice President.
Robust. Okay. If you look at the papers to get Measure Q on the ballot, you'll see my name there, along with former Treasurer John Marty. We thought it was really important to get this done. I made a lot of personal calls myself to a lot of labor leaders and tried to sell Measure Q, saying, this is going to help your members. And I believe Q won by 74%, raised enough money to get it through. And the way I read Measure Q, it's for water, infrastructure, street improvements, which people desperately need, and fire improvements, infrastructure, not a new capital fire station project. It would be wise, in my interpretation as a former mayor, to use Measure Q funds for those particular items and reasons, instead of taking $20+ million from Measure Q and putting it to a new fire station. I was up there, as you all know, that night when a lot of our lines were blown out. We had to run hoses thousands of feet to get any kind of coverage. Fire station up there now has to have schedules for people to take showers, because male and female are working there. It's I spoke up there to the press years ago after the explosion, and believe me, it was in bad shape then. So we have a potential to do something here going forward with the remainder of our funds. You've heard people say tonight, an individual said, you know, you guys made the decision already. It's not the case. That's what we're talking about here. We're going to make a decision hopefully next month after we have some discussions with the city council subcommittees to see what they'd like to do and if they'll partner with us on this endeavor. And I can see taking $15 to $20 million and putting it into the fire station and taking the savings of $20 million and putting it into the streets, which Measure Q is for. It just, it's a no-brainer for me. It was talked about, why can't you form another nonprofit? Well, you go ahead and form another nonprofit. The city can do that. We did very extensive research with consultants to find out if we should be soliciting funds. And it came back, absolutely not. You're a hybrid. You started out with money. A lot of nonprofits start out with no money and they solicit funds. You're not going to get the funds. So if there's a group of people in the city, whether it be elected or not elected, that want to start a nonprofit, do it. Get your auditors, get your accountants, get your insurance, and get your certification. Nothing to prevent you from doing that. Maybe it's a good idea. You know, put money into the downtown. We put over $1 million into the downtown and surrounding streets. We're prohibited as a nonprofit from walking up and giving merchants money. We can give the money to other nonprofits, which we've done a number of years now. And if you look at the letter we wrote to the city council and look at the sheets in the back, there's a couple of sheets that show what we've given in all of our endeavors since Nancy was the first president there, to all of these entities in and around San Bruno and for San Bruno. It's millions and millions of dollars. They talk about, fields that never ends. Those are capital projects for the city of San Bruno. And at times they can afford them and at times they can't, but we can't control that as a foundation. We start doing that kind of stuff, it's gone. It's gone in a flash. It was never the intent of this foundation to take care of city general fund issues. And we have, that's a very slippery slope. So we looked at, what's really feasible. We, and I'll say as the mayor at the time, and Michael Salazar was there, and Rico Medina was there, we told those people, we're going to upgrade this neighborhood, and part of that's going to be a fire station. They deserve it. They deserve it. We actually have a potential to relocate that fire station and we haven't. I know the city's had some minor discussion with Caltrans about a vacant lot they have up there, which would be perfect. Maybe Caltrans would want to take over the old site for resident housing or employee housing. It's a win-win for everybody. So the potential is there. Yeah, we thought and talked about some of the other things that were on some of the lists that were mentioned over the years, a new library, all of the different types of things that we can do. There's no plan for one. There's no space for one. There's no money for one. And you're talking about a planning process that would be many years in the making. And it's a low priority as far as what could actually be done in the future for the city. That's something the city can tackle. They will in fact have funds coming from the Tancred project. I understand they have some money left over from YouTube, whatever that happens to be. It's their decision to use that money for general fund issues. So we have a real good opportunity here to make something happen in a reasonable amount of time that will in fact impact everybody one way or the other in the city of San Bruno. So I made no secret that that fire station seems to be the way to go. It's a practical way to go, and I'm all for it. I'm all for it. So I look forward to our meeting with the ad hoc city council group and see what we can get done. But we have to make a decision here pretty soon. Thank you,
Jim. So I think the challenge that we are currently facing is that there are a lot of competing priorities for the city and for this foundation. We know our charge. The city council knows their charge, and we are on different timelines. And there's also decisions that aren't made in isolation, but require research, conversations, meetings, interview, a whole lot to take into consideration when making such a huge, decision like this one. And the foundation is not immune to that. The foundation has done an extensive amount of research and data collection around all of the things that we've been able to accomplish and implement since the inception of this foundation. And so last meeting, I spoke for a long time as well, but I set the table and I provided a lot of context in terms of things that we've done with the funding, how much we've spent. And that's really, I really just want to acknowledge the previous board members who really started this conversation and went through the process to get us to the RAC. We've accomplished the RAC. But I also have to give credit where credit is due in that Leslie has been able to lead and to manage all of this together, right? With the support of the board members and other consultants, but her financial acumen to make sure that the foundation was doing what it was charged to do, staying within our parameters, and then essentially consulting to have a quasi endowment that is now offered an enormous amount of money that is enormous to us because we weren't expecting it, but it's also not a lot of money to really support or really drive huge projects. But I think what's within our jurisdiction and within our capacity, the fire station makes the most sense to me for a myriad of reasons which have already been mentioned. But I personally really think that the fire station, they usually kind of are not often at the top of the priority when it comes to city decision. And it's because they make do with very little because they do. And I, for one, have a very strong feeling around taking care of those who take care of us. One is not just that the fire station is dilapidated, it's old, but that they're not even really open to having anyone kind of look at it because it's such in bad shape, right? And so this is the type of environment and circumstance that we are continuing to allow our firemen and women who are fire people to live in these conditions when they work, around the clock to ensure that they're safe. And to Ms. Mason's comment earlier, they are also medics. So they are also, EMT certified. So these gentlemen and women are not just people who are coming to firefight, but they're also saving lives. And to me, that is an important component to how our community remains safe and that we're able to thrive. Jim and others have mentioned that, the city has certain responsibilities, and as a foundation, our job is to work in alignment and in partnership with the city around some of these projects and things that they need to happen. However, as I mentioned earlier, there's a timeline. They have certain priorities. Measure Q has very clear intentions on how it wants to use its funds. And the foundation, which is why there is a board, that we are voices of our community. We're not doing things that because it's important to Melissa or it's important to Jim, but we all represent voices and diverse voices of the community. And so I have an enormous amount of faith and trust in the group that's sitting up here that we would make the best decision on behalf of the community that we serve. I also just want to mention that I know that it feels like we're making this decision and it's rapid, but I would also encourage community members to go back and read the notes on this particular topic. There's tons of information of what we've done, who we've talked to, the research we've done, the data we've collected. And so this, again, has not been something that we've done on a whim or based on personal need, but that we've considered all of the many facets that are important to making a decision this big. I myself, and I can also speak for my colleagues if that's okay, we don't take this decision lightly. We think it's a very important decision because it is going to, it's going to help propel, the city of San Bruno. And we all live here, we all care very much about the community. And so I know sometimes we aren't able to achieve what we personally feel is important or that what we value isn't feeling validated at this time. I want to just reassure you that that's not our intention, is to not. It's really a tough decision that we have to make, but that we trust that this ad hoc committee that we're a part of that also includes city council members, that we can come to a decision in the near future to really ensure that whatever we use the rest of the funds for is done, understanding all of our options, having the most information so that we make an informed decision, but that it's also really aligned with the charge of this foundation, which I always want to go back to. We don't have the same charge as the city. We don't have the same charge as, say, the public. Our charge is to ensure that what we do with the remaining funds of this is able to support, provide, and give more to the community that we serve. And so I just want to also echo my colleagues around making an informed decision, ensuring that we review everything which we continuously refer and reference to. And I also understand the need, the great need that Fire Station 52 has. And so I also feel very strongly about moving forward in that direction with all of the information that we have in hand and access to. So, are there any other things that anyone else has to say or want to add? Any questions that the other board members we want to pose to the ad hoc committee for us to discuss?
Ask a question.
Yeah.
Do we need to also discuss the program for 2025-26, or would that just be discussed in May? What our thoughts are, what our opinions are about that part? Do we need to discuss that too?
Absolutely. We should be talking about what winding down looks like, right? So if the thought is that we want to preserve as much as we can to maximize whatever project it is that the money is going to, that also means that we would be winding down our programs. As mentioned in our last meeting, it would be to discontinue, and it's also here, to discontinue our grants program, our Pressmore Scholarship, and our special off-cycle grants that we sometimes provide, right? That would also impact operations. And so that is also something that we should talk about as we get closer and closer to June. The only thing that I would keep in mind is that it's also budget time, which is why it's important for us to have these discussions. Because our budget that we create should reflect the decision that the board makes, which also ultimately has to go to the city. So yeah, this is the time. Am I? Yep.
So I am in favor that we try to preserve the capital as much as we can, including winding down or reducing our support so that we can maximize whatever investment that we put in. I'm gonna steal something that you mentioned, that this is the time where we may want to put all our eggs in one basket and really make a big impact. So I am for that.
Yeah, in my experience, volunteering on the grants panel and then just professional experience as well, like the fixed costs are high on running these programs. And when you extrapolate it out over many years, like the cost benefit starts to kind of wane compared to what it was in the earlier years. Also for the community grants, $300,000 isn't what it was 10 years ago when it started, or 12. And so when I was onboarding to the board and reading up on all of the history, I felt very much in favor of winding down the smaller projects too, to preserve the money for a larger legacy project.
The only thought I had was, we've heard a couple of times in the last 2 board meetings, of the concept of having some endowment possibly to the San Bruno Education Foundation, so they can continue the scholarship. I just don't know if we've talked about that much and whether that could be something because we talked about possible multiple legacies with including the 2 million that goes to the festival, whether that is an endowment that is also, that could be part of the discussion there, because I feel like it's come up a couple of times, not for us to run it, so it's not to, I'm supporting the termination or winding down of our programs, but a concept of a legacy of an endowment to provide to the San Bruno Education Foundation, so they could run in their volunteer capacity a scholarship program, because I think there is a legacy there for the students, because I've seen the impacts of that in giving that out to the students. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know that we've had extensive conversation about that. I think we've been kind of sort of thinking of maybe there's a volunteer ran nonprofit that's created, that's completely separated from the city, that would essentially do some of the work that we're doing. There's also like providing funds to the Education Foundation of San Bruno to help continue some of that. And we've talked about it briefly, but there's been no larger discussion. I also just want to remind us that the idea of us winding down the funds, that there's also sort of this caveat that we would have put money away for the Crestmore lights, and that we would also keep some money just to, in case there's anything that we need in terms of operations or any other, we still have fixed costs that we have in operations that currently is being managed, but just to make sure that whatever the longevity of this foundation is, that there's enough on top of whatever we contribute to a legacy project. So I also just wanted to bring that forth for discussion or consideration.
Through the chair, you mentioned the Education Foundation, and I'll mention the school district. Keep in mind, there's great potential there, even so, though some of their projects fell through. The Engvall sale fell through. I don't know why. The El Crystal sale fell through. I don't know why. But those are huge pieces of property that are worth an awful lot of money that are sitting in their back pocket. So if they were to get 70 million for Engvall and now they get 50, that's still something to say. So that potential is there. And if the Education Foundation wanted to have that discussion, that has to be part of it too. Because don't forget that. I mean, that's a big potential in their pocket.
Are there any other questions or discussion topics that you'd like the ad hoc committee to consider in our next meeting?
I'm gonna just ask what are our expectations with this upcoming meeting with the ad hoc committee members from the city council? Do we expect them to come with multiple projects or more details on fire station only?
If I may,
Yeah.
we sent them a letter, which you probably read,
Yeah.
and it said, we'd like to consider the potential of option one, the legacy project for the city. And we'd like the city to respond to us because we need to know their intentions going forward shortly too, because we have this issue where if we're gonna wind down, we have to wind down here pretty quick. So, my intention, and I'm just one of the members, is to sit down and say, okay, what do you want to do? Let's sit down and have this discussion. We haven't spoken to them yet. And, I'm sure they're having their own internal discussion, just as we are here too, see what's going on. So it's just a matter of sitting across the table and saying, this is what we would like to do. How do you feel about it? Or, is it off the table or is it a go, and how can we make it happen?
Yeah, so I would just underscore that and say that our intention is to be clear about what the city's priority and initiative is around us partnering on a legacy project. Because we can't choose a project and just do it, like, we need the city, right? And so, we're nudging them to kind of get there, so that we can also plan, and so we can't really plan without them, so we really want some tangible next steps and direction, so we then can come back to the full board and say, okay, this is what they said, and this is where we think we wanna move forward, and really go from there, and, so it's just a lot of clarity and some real tangible next steps. As you know, we did send a letter, and our hope is that they are having a conversation, a great one, just like we're having right now, to sort of give us some parameters around what the interest is. Raul, did you want to add anything about that?
Follow-up question. Is there a different scenario then where if we don't have enough information to decide on a wind down? Because it sounded like we would have to make the decision in May of, end of lifing the programs. Is there a scenario that we would defer that another year, or just trying to understand what I'll be thinking of in a month?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that that's impossible. I don't think it's like completely off the table, but it does change the dynamic of kind of our intention at this point, right? And so, again, that would be a decision that we make as a whole. But certainly we are encouraging the city to give us some more information. And for the record, for everybody in the chat, we've constantly asked them, what do you want? What are you doing? What projects do you have? What are your interests? We've asked explicitly. And so we meet with them every month to have updates on other projects that we're supporting with the city. And so that's always an item on the agenda is, are there any projects that you all are thinking about? And so naturally, the fire station was in Measure Q. We also know that there's been a strong interest for an updated library or a new library, but again, we can't make that decision on our own. So definitely that's the hope. And they've been good partners. We just want to have some more tangible next steps so we know what we're doing. Did you want to add anything to what I said, Lindsay? No. Any other questions or discussions for the ad hoc committee? We'll take the marching orders, I promise. Okay. So I will just say that, our ad hoc committee will then meet. We have our meeting coming up. And we will bring forth all of the things that we heard tonight. Some of the questions that, are pending. We'll also ensure that we, sort of review and revisit some of the things that we've already said and have already discussed in terms of community input, and hopefully we'll get some information to report back that feels strong enough for us to make a decision. Okay. If there are no other comments, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to item number 8. Would any board members like to make a comment?
Thank you for your hard work. Thank you.
I'll just say I want to again welcome and acknowledge Jessica for joining our board at this very pivotal time of the board. And please don't feel overwhelmed. I promise we're safe. So I just want to welcome you and thank you for taking this responsibility to join us. That's all I had to comment. Any other comments?
I'll just say, yeah, I'm thrilled to join, to represent, be another voice of the community. It's a really important juncture for the board, so I feel like I'm getting in at just the right time. And very much looking forward to working more with all of you.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much. Again, Thank you to the public who've been here and joining us tonight. I'll move over to item 99, because that's what it felt like. Item number 9. May I please have a motion to adjourn our meeting?
Second.
Okay, thank you so much. We are, sorry. All in favor?
I.
Roll. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.